Inside the training camp, how to win the World Cup. The success or failure of the World Cup can be affected before the ball is kicked. Proper preparation is essential. Well, what is the proper preparation? In today's video, let us talk about the training camp. Stay until the end of the video to know more. With insight from Sky Sports' Jamie Carragher and others, this extract from the World Cup win by Chris Evans explores the nuances of the pre-tournament training camp. While positive results and a run to the semifinals undoubtedly helped, the tone of England's 2018 camp was different from previous tournaments. After a disastrous 2010 campaign when England was beaten 4-1 by mighty Germany in the last 16 in the group stage, several players came out to express their displeasure with manager Fabio Capello's authoritarian regime. The Italian was accused by some of the players of being a control freak. That strict rules such as banning ketchup and butter from team meals, boredom caused by restrictions on activities, and mixed messages put the players in a bad frame of mind. Defender Jamie Carragher has an alternative view, though, and points out that sometimes complaints about camp conditions can be a ploy by players to cover up their feelings. A lot of players complained that they weren't allowed to do certain things, which I thought was an excuse for poor performances. I enjoy the World Cup in South Africa and at the base. We didn't have to travel to the training pitch, and the facilities we had at the base were fantastic. After coming back from that World Cup, I was a bit upset in hearing all the criticism and complaints. I just thought they were excuses. If it seems a bit extreme to pin all of England's struggles on the reduction of a few luxuries, what fuss did Carragher make about Capello's ketchup ban? If you're a professional athlete and you can't eat ketchup, he replies, trailing off momentarily. Whether you eat ketchup or not doesn't make much of a difference to your performance. Is it such a big deal to whine that you can't have ketchup with your dinner? I mean, come on. For those who complain about such things, it makes them sound immature. Whether certain points of criticism of England's 2010 camp are warranted, there is certainly something to be said for showing confidence in the players and giving them some freedom to entertain themselves during the tournament. When squads are so closely guarded, giving players a chance to let off steam can provide extra motivation. While there are stories of players being apathetic about tournament progress due to their boredom at the training base late in the week, coaches can use the prospect of some freedom as an incentive for better performance. Just like Vicente Del Bosque did with Spain when they won glory in South Africa. When they got Portugal in the first knockout, he, Del Bosque, said, "If you eliminate them, you'll be out all night," says journalist Graham Hunter, who entered La Rosa's World Cup 2010 squad. He said, "It's been hard work and we're not going to back straight away, so you can go out all night." Being a scout, growing up with Jimmy Johnstone stealing a rowing boat and Willie Johnston being sent home in '78 to throw the players out like that, but nothing went wrong. I saw a group of players come back with absolutely no legs, and every single one of them was on time for the bus the next morning, and Del Bosque told them to do it. With the quarterfinal against Paraguay just days before, taking Del Bosque with the World Cup favorites seems like too big of a risk. Yet when Hunter asked the experienced manager about it, the Spaniard's response showed that can be allowed if healthy respect is built within the squad. I asked him, Del Bosque, was it a big risk? What if someone would have been arrested or get into trouble? And two, I'll take whoever was involved aside and chat with them, and I'll tell them to be more careful. But I'll treat them like adults. I give them an award for their hard work to encourage them, and I know what they will do with it. If something goes wrong, I'll do it again next time if I think it's appropriate. It's the level of resilience in a relationship with them. He certainly didn't think there was any chance anything could go wrong. It wasn't complete naivety. This was a guy who knew the squad well enough to know there were no idiots. No one would get drunk, fall asleep in the nightclub, and miss the plane or whatever. And he was right. It all comes down to the T word again, trust, although perhaps the key to maintaining control is not giving it up in the first place. Whether leaning on the coaching staff or creating a hierarchy of leaders among the squad's senior players, the foundation a manager lays to build trust with certain individuals can pay dividends in keeping the ship in order. It can become managed by proxy. Jack Carlton had his way of making us almost his family, recalls Republic of Ireland forward Neil Quinn. He was warm and so funny, but also very serious and had lots of messages on his wall. Andy Townsend told me one of them said, "You'll be a dictator, but the trick is not to let anyone know you're a dictator," which sums it up brilliantly. He, Charlton, was a dictator, and he was who he was. He did it his way, and he didn't suffer fools along the way, but everyone loved him. It put us in a position with a bond that we all bought. That feeling of being part of the family unit extended to Hungary's hallowed golden team that went into the 1954 World Cup as favorites. Head coach Gustav Sebes developed a network of contacts among the players, relatives to keep a close eye on what they were doing and ensure a squad didn't collapse before the tournament. For the sake of the coming event, our trainer Sebas sought the cooperation of all the wives and mothers and asked them to make sure their husbands or sons led a quiet, untroubled life and went to bed early. Ferenc Puskas wrote in his eponymous autobiography, "Once one of our players went home later than expected. His wife had sat worrying and waiting up for quite a while, but in the end she went to bed. Her husband, who had a bad conscience, took off his shoes and crept into the bedroom, anxious not to disturb his sleeping wife. His luck was out." "Is that you, Jancy?" she asked in an angry voice. "Of course it's me," he replied. Instead of being alone, added, "Did you expect it to be someone else?" The next day, we all knew about the family feud, and poor Jancy was in hot water with our coach for disturbing his training period. He always saw our team as one big family and treated each other accordingly. The truth is, there doesn't seem to be a clear answer to how much family time is enough. But as Belgium boss Roberto Martinez points out, modern beliefs don't seem conducive to a happy environment when going cold turkey. "It's not normal for a player to see his family for 50 days, Martinez told me. "These players are playing big games for their clubs, and they prepare by training, by being on the training ground and getting all the support they can. But then they go home, they sleep in their comfortable environment, they see their families, and then they go out on a pitch to a huge audience and perform." Now, when you go to the World Cup, suddenly you have to do something you've never done before, which is to play games without seeing your family. How can you be a father, a husband, a brother, and a son without seeing the people you love and what you haven't done? The idea that families can be distractions doesn't come out of anywhere, though. One of the most high-profile instances was when England's 2006 World Cup crusade was overshadowed by a group of wives and girlfriends, or wags as the British press called them, based in nearby Baden-Baden. At times it was hard to tell whether it was the players or their partners who were greater interest to the press. Leading a talented side to their first international win in 40 years was all part of manager Sven-Goran Eriksson's master plan. But when they lost to Portugal in a quarterfinal penalty shootout, the microscope examined why. And it was the wags who had a lot of stick. But despite Eriksson's, while the decision to keep families closer is regularly cited as an example of why it's a bad idea, Carragher disagrees.